Party. Oh,
Can't
God.
stop
What,
partying.
what's that one
Partying.
song that they just go eh.
Island in the Sun.
Yeah. Oh God.
Eh,
Oh.
eh,
Eh, eh,
eh, eh.
I'm
I remember
surprised
that
nobody
song
sampled
playing.
that for like Undertale NPC noises.
Oh god.
yeah.
Or like Animal Crossing and
Eh,
Yeah.
eh.
I
I remember it playing in it wasn't like a Disney Channel original movie, but it was like of the same vein. Where it was like one of them became a mermaid, and then the cool guy, it was like going like longboarding down the road, and it was like playing Island in the Sun or something.
Oh
And it was
my
like,
God.
whoa, he's cool.
He's cool. He listens to Weezer, guys.
He listens to
He
Weezer.
listens to
He's so
Weezer. He's
cool.
so cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Preamp. Uh,
Hello.
we're back for another episode, and yeah, this week we're traveling back to the land before time. Before the Black Eyed Peas, there was a little band called Black Eyes.
Black Eyed
Yeah.
Black Eyes. Do you want to tell us about them, Willow? As this was your choice?
Yeah. So yeah, Black Eyes. They were like some small band from like the DC punk scene in like um late 90s, early 2000s. That kind of like dabbled in more of like the art punk type of genre, which is always, it makes me cheese saying that name. Um, but
It's like thoughtful rap or whatever they call it.
yeah, like
Conscious hip
intelligent
hop.
Oh,
Yeah.
dance music.
conscious hip hop. Oh, that one
Conscious,
pains me. It's
yeah, that
Mhm.
one's rough.
it's that and avant garde. Those are the two.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, they like have this weird, like, really dissident kind of sound. Um. And they're built up of a strange lineup. They have two drummers, um, just all the time that are playing. So like, drums will be panned either side to sing to the album. It's really crazy. Um, and I think two bass players too. Um, yeah, so there's a really interesting sound. It's been an album I really liked the past couple years since I came across it. Um, it's also really interesting to me because it's on the Discord um record label, which the singer in Minor Threat and like every other DC band Ian Mackay started. Um and so yeah, I just thought it was really
You say it like
interesting.
he's like some kind of eldritch being where he's simultaneously in every DC band at once.
No, yeah. that
For a
that's
time, it
correct.
kind of seemed like that.
Yeah,
Just imagining
basically
this. You see the
any
set list, and it's just every band is him.
Yeah.
yeah, like almost any, like, if you hear like a late 80s like hardcore band from DC, he was in it probably. um
It's how
so
people
yeah, it
talk
was
about
just
Pat Schmier. He's just, oh yeah, he's everywhere.
yeah, just omnipotent, just he's in all locations.
He's been in every band.
So this band's kind of coming from like a long lineage of DC hardcore, basically.
Yeah. um and sorry, I just thought their sound was really interesting. And so yeah, so I wanted to see what you guys thought about it. um Wanted to have an excuse to listen to it again, talk about it. So again,
Cool.
so but I guess I'll ask you because I have a bit of a hint as to how Sin feels about it. But you listening through to it, how do you feel about it in general?
Yeah, I guess I have, yeah, generally positive things about it. Yeah, mixed to generally positive, I guess I'll say.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the band. So like, I looking at like what they're doing, reading their Wikipedia page a little bit, and just kind of like seeing what was going on. So it's like, okay, so they're like pulling from DC hardcore and just kind of general post-punk influence. I was hearing a lot of influences as well of like um kind of like that screamo. I'm not even really screamo, but just sort of like that kind of frantic, like specific vein
Mhm.
of post-hardcore that was very like yelpy, I guess. Because then I was listening
Yeah.
to it, I was like, okay, the vocals kind of remind me of Blood Brothers, if you've ever heard of them.
I've not.
Can't say I have,
They
no.
yeah, they just similar deal, like a post-hardcore band. Um, a surprisingly large amount of members in the band, but they played yeah, they would play similar stuff, yeah, like vocals wise and like some parts of like but they were more up tempo um and a
Mhm.
lot louder, and it was an interesting contrast seeing the things that I saw in common between them with the vocals and the kind of delivery and the choppiness of it, and kind of contrasting that with what I saw on this album was a lot more like plotting and groovy,
Mhm.
and a lot more, I don't know, like I have a hard time describing some of the things that I think in my head. It sounds more on the ground, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like it's kind of with all of its weird, noisy kind of stuff happening. Like it's pretty like um at times like really stripped back and kind of um like a little bit like minimalist. Like
Yeah, they're playing with
mm,
like a pretty tight palette, like, or a pretty tight like um you know set of instruments, right? It's like, okay, I'm hearing guitar, right? Or I mean, I'm hearing more bass than guitar. That's the thing that I'm really paying attention to. This is a very bass like forward album,
Yeah,
drums forward.
I
mhm.
was thinking it kind of reminded me
Yeah.
of some of the bass from Peter Hook, where the bass is more the melody in songs, and threw me back to some of the more like Joy Division stuff rather than more New Order. But
Hmm.
like, yeah, I was
Yeah.
definitely thinking
Yeah.
about Peter Hook on a couple songs.
Yeah, it was definitely reminding me of like the earlier post-punk, like Gang of Four I was picking up on
Oh
too,
yeah, I can see
with
that.
some
Mhm.
of like the noisier sections too, because they Gang of Four would kind of play around with like that kind of like feedback, cacophony stuff, and obviously the bass
Yeah.
on it is very similar. Um, and um, so yeah, I had that coming in as well as like seeing how they were kind of playing off of the the formula that those earlier bands were laying out, and overall, instrumentally, I thought it wasn't a bad record. I
Yeah.
guess to say the stuff that I didn't really care for. Um, it felt like, um, I guess to go along with what I was saying, it felt like on the ground. It also felt like sometimes it was really having a hard time getting off the ground because they
Mm.
had
Uh.
such like a strong backbone. I felt from what they were
Mhm.
going off of, but then a lot of times I was like, I wanted them to do more with what they were doing, right? Because like I wanted
Yeah.
them to maybe just like just change the pace, change up something to kind of like move the song along, but a lot of times ended up feeling kind of disjointed. Um, and I kind of, I can appreciate disjointedness if I think that it's kind of working well within the songs. Like a lot of the songs don't really
Mhm.
follow like a verse chorus, kind of setup, which I like,
Yeah.
if it's done well, and I think they did it well sometimes, but um, yeah, I think sometimes it just kind of felt like it was just kind of, yeah, kind of like stomping along, and um yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I disappointed because I was like, oh, I was like, it's so strong to start off with how I felt. Um, so that's pretty much that's I guess that's my first and last impressions with it. I kind of
Mhm.
described like my whole experience with it there. So I guess I'll toss it over to Sin to see what she has to think about it.
Yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
I echo a lot of the same sentiments. I think that your point on the fact that it never really felt like it got off the ground, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. For me, it was like, it opens really strong, and it's got the great, like you said, the great backbone, really solid percussion, like really drawing me in. Using the bass as a melody is a good platform for the guitar to jump off of and do some more crazy off the wall things. The vocals are really interesting, but it never really cohered enough to go anywhere other than where it starts, and it felt like it got a little bit repetitive. And like my ADHD has been really bad this week, so like one of the things was like, this should be like perfect for that, right? And it still started to become background noise at times when it got that repetitive, and I kind of struggled with it, especially like when the guitar lacks really any kind of coherent melody and they are doing more off the wall stuff. Nothing's really holding my attention. The bass slips into the background, the drums slip into the background, and it's just this guitar doing weird stuff as I struggle to really attach myself to it. But all the same, there are a few songs in there that really do hold my attention. Like, I mean, the guitar sounds were probably on their best on like Deformative and Nine, but like that's when they were really like felt like they cohered more with the rest of the song. Nine felt a bit more traditional guitar, like just more of a solo kind of thing. And then on Deformative, it just fit in with what everything was doing, even though it was crazy because the bass was given so much more to do. And the vocals carry that song. That was great. But
definitely a reason why it's the single of the album.
Yeah, it felt the most normal, I guess I'm going to put it, even though the guitar is absolutely fucking insane on that. You go wow, 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 wow.
Yeah.
But speaking of like something that really stands out instrumentally, on the Sacred side, like the percussion on the opening of that song is insane. I'm actually gonna play a little bit of the intro of it for anybody listening, because it's just so meaty and wonderful. Like,
yeah, like it sounds insane.
yeah, it sounds like somebody's slamming like dustbin lids and like playing the wildest, most homemade drum kit you can imagine. And it comes in with this meaty, distorted bass that carries the whole song on its back, and that ends up being one of my favorite songs off of the album because of it. Like, opening was decent. That whole segment with like On the Sacred Side and Deformative so close together was pretty good, and then the ending was a little weak for me. Like, it felt a little dry at times, even though they are doing this off the wall stuff. It just never really did anything with it enough to really draw me in. It's like, oh yeah, we're like, when you listen to like something by a band where they're really just going, look at how technically amazing we are with our instruments. It's like, okay, now do something with that. And that's what the guitar felt like consistently. Even though the rest of the band actually felt like they were doing something, it just needed one extra element to pull it in. And for some bands, that's synths. For some bands, that's a keyboard. For some bands, that's like horns. But for this, it was like the guitar couldn't do that. And it led to me enjoying the album, but not loving the album.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see like at times it's definitely like the one song on Day Turns to Night is really like, it's like, oh, okay, this is like a noisy like song, like like not much happens in it. So like I definitely see parts of this album getting a bit definitely a little bit lost. Which part of it feels like that's kind of what they were going for almost.
It could have used a little bit more of what we got from, I mean, to talk about other albums we've listened to, it could have used a little bit more of what we got on An Awesome Wave or Hellfire, where it just starts to just go in a different direction in like, okay, here's this thing we got going. Now we're going to go in a different direction. Now we're going to build on it. Now we're going to go somewhere. And An Awesome Wave failed at that for me at times, but it did a lot more of it than I got here, because this is this is how I'm gonna have to describe it. It's the album I've listened to with the most individual elements I love without loving the album. I
Oh.
love the percussion, whether that's drums or otherwise, um, like cowbell in there at times. I love the bass. I mean I love Joy Division and it reminded me of that, so that should tell you. And I absolutely adore the vocals.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed the vocals throughout the album, but it didn't feel tied together enough for me to love the album.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like in a way that's some of kind of what kind of drew me to the album because like it doesn't sound like what I would like expect at all, like in any way. Like it doesn't like it almost all is kind of feels like one thing to me, like the whole album, rather than it being as much as like, oh, here's this song and this song and this song. It's like they're all just kind of parts of the same thing.
I think
That's
I
kind of how it
disagree
feels to
because
me.
like a band should be its individual elements elevate the other elements, and I don't feel like this does that.
Mhm.
Like all the individual elements are great, but they don't elevate each other. They don't build each other up. Like, sorry to reference like um the Hellfire again, or like another album we've talked about is just like, or even let's go to Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Like, I love the vocals on that record, but the vocals are accentuated by everything else in the song. They're
Mhm.
strange, they're different, they're not the best vocals ever, but it's accentuated by what everything else is providing to it. The guitar tone's really interesting. It's got that um like surf rock element to it, and so it's like giving something for a platform for the singer to jump off of. And then when he's doing his weird voice modulation, it fits with the guitar. You know, things are tying together enough. Things work well together, and that's really what I was lacking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I also think
Yeah.
like one thing that I think that that was kind of disappointing as well is how I didn't really feel like the I was really drawn into the lyrics on that many spots in the album. And I'm
Yeah.
not somebody who like I don't normally I'm not like a big lyrics guy usually. I definitely go more off of like how the song sounds rather than like the lyrical content, but I do try to like, if I'm gonna be listening to something kind of critically, it's like I gotta listen to the lyrics. But a lot of times it's like what we've been saying, it's like it kind of turns into like background noise where I'm trying to like, listen to it, but I kind of would just get bored at sometimes where I'm like, okay, like this is another like noisy section where it's just kind of like free form, and I'm like, I just want to like get pulled back into like the groove and the just like the bass and drums working off of each other, and I just yeah,
Yeah,
the
and the
lyrics
one
never
song
really
where it does
jumped
that
out to me a
most,
lot.
and the one song where it does that most is Deformative, where
Hmm.
like
Mhm.
Yep.
it feels like everything ties together. Yeah, it's
Yep.
just a whole album of songs like that. It would be one of my favorite albums.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Someone has his fingers broken too is another.
Yeah,
That's a great opener too. I think if there's like a second place for like how well I think the lyrics worked, I think that would have to be
Mhm.
it.
yeah, I agree. One of the things I guess because we were talking about the individual elements, I brought up the vocals to Willow in the midweek, and yeah, I was really surprised to learn that there's no female singer on this album. It's two guys.
Yeah.
I was wondering the same thing. I didn't actually look into that, even though it did that exact same thought came to my mind. I was like, is this like is this a guy or a girl singing? Because it was so like it was like uh you have shrill and not so shrill, right? And it's
Yeah,
like
and I
shrill
love
voice,
both of
Yeah.
but
them
yeah.
equally. Like they accentuate each other really well.
Yeah, the vocal like they made a very good duo.
Mm.
Like totally right. Like you have the two just kind of like going back and forth. What was that one where they're basically doing a polyrhythm with their voice? I forget
Yeah,
which one
yeah.
that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the vocals were good.
Yeah, that's something that really kind of drew me in to them originally. I really liked the delivery. Um, and like I don't know, this has a really like a lot of that stuff brought up with it feeling kind of not cohesive. Like I don't know, it's something that like made me intrigued by it because it's like it doesn't sound like stuff kind of should sound like really like, and that's something I liked
you
about
know
it.
how it sounds shit. That sounds really good
Well,
to me.
yeah, well because it's like it's not what another group would have done. Like it feels really like I don't know. It feels like
Who else is
really
sounding
unique to
like
me.
shit out here? No.
You know
Well,
what it
yeah,
reminds me of. You
kind of,
said
yeah.
that, and something I thought about earlier today was just that it makes this is how they tried to make Scott Pilgrim's band sound in the movie. They wanted it to sound like this, where they're just, they just sound like you could hear all the dirt, all the grunge on every individual thing they're doing. Like the singing sounds shit in an intentional way. The guitar sounds shit in an intentional way. And it's just like this pure, like, I don't mean this in a negative way, but like the pure garbage in
Mhm.
like the way that it's intentional.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, this is like this is like Scott Pilgrim would have sounded like if he was actually enjoyable.
Yeah, like I also got cuz I brought it up um earlier, but I kind of had some like some of this album kind of made me think of like uh one band. I always forget how to I don't know that I ever knew how to say the name of this band. I've like never talked to people about them, but Paraubu or
Yeah,
Piriubu,
Perubu. Yeah.
yeah, Paraubu. Kind of a lot of it kind of reminded me of that with the um I don't know, really repetitive like drums because that's one thing that's the album. I almost got some like industrial kind of vibes with um like the drums
Hmm.
um because a lot of the time they'll just really be like locked in kind of doing like one thing
Right.
throughout the song um and then that along with the vocals being really like um kind of screeching all over the place.
So you played me some of that, and I just thought they sounded like Wild Wild Life, David Byrne.
Yeah. um yeah, they have that kind of vibe going on. Um and yeah, it just kind of reminded me of some of that. Um
I could see it. Yeah.
old and some of the times in the album got really kind of groovy and um like a little funky almost. Like let's see which song was it? It was one of the later ones. King's Dominion, I think. Um
That was the
yeah,
better
that
of the
one.
ending songs, yeah.
Yeah, it got kind of like this kind of
The
groovy thing going on with
Shroove.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty neat. Um with some really kind of uh punchy like kind of driving vocals. Um which I thought was pretty interesting. Um
I'm gonna do the Sin thing here. I'm gonna say the vocals on this album, predominantly the less shrill sounding vocals, just reminded me a lot of the moments you get from Frank Black on some Pixies records.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like I was hearing some of the way he yells and delivers his vocals, and it just reminded me of those moments you get from Frank Black. Obviously, we've talked about before. There's that kind of loud, quiet that you kind of get from Pixies that you don't really hear. It's loud permanently. But that's why it's reminding me of those louder Frank Black moments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I can definitely see that. That's definitely a good shout that it kind of, because yeah, I kind of get that too with it. Reminding me of Frank Black a few times. Just the kind of a little bit like off key, maybe like yelling and stuff. Because sometimes
Yeah.
Frank Black's really good at doing that kind of like playing around. Um,
I'm thinking about River
and kind of coming at
Euphrates
something.
specifically in my head.
Yeah. Um.
We're just going, ride! Tiger! Down! I fucking love Pixies. We need to do a Pixies record at some point. I just love them.
Well,
Yeah,
we
we
got the
do.
next pick, so
I've already decided it's
We
not
do
that.
have the next thing. Oh, okay. um.
yeah. Was there anything else? Anybody had any other thoughts they wanted to bring up about the album? Or
No.
Um. Then I didn't have any extra things to bring up. I don't think.
Well, I want to
Um.
mention briefly that, like, I meant to mention this way earlier, but I really feel like it's ahead of its time. I really feel like this is the sound that a
Mhm.
lot of bands tried to cultivate, like, most of a decade later. Um, and um, I know they get credited a lot as like a progenitor of that style, and they inspired a lot of people. And but they broke up like after their first record and never really capitalized on that. But they came back, I think it was
Mhm.
last year, and started touring again,
Yeah.
playing their original album. They did a re-release of the vinyl, and it still feels like they fit right in today. So the fact that they're playing something they released in 2003, I was really surprised that it was 2003. I know maybe if you're more tuned into post-punk, you'd be able to tell where this is from immediately. But for me, I was like, this could easily have been from 2009, 2012, and it wouldn't have surprised me. So
Yeah.
I have to commend them for that. And there's definitely something here that a lot of people tried to pick up on later. So there's a reason it's got that cult following, and massive credit to them for doing that.
yeah, that is definitely something that's really noteworthy about the album. I was really disappointed to see that they had just pretty much broken up like the next year.
Yeah.
Because did they put out like one thing like the next year, I think.
Yeah, it was like a
Um,
short
Yeah.
thing, wasn't it?
yeah, short little thing. Because for all like the flaws, like because I have to say I don't think I'll come back to the album like constantly. I think
Yeah.
performative definitely I'll listen to a few other songs off the album, but I really thought that they had a lot going for them, that if they could just kind of like hone that,
Yeah.
they would be golden,
Mhm.
It
and if they
really does
had
sound
any
like a
albums
first
past, I
album.
would be listening.
It,
Yeah.
yeah, it really does sound like a first album for a sound that isn't that popular, that they're trying to, I guess, more pioneer.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so like when they enter that space that hasn't really got much ground to stand on, make an album like this that is very raw and then disappear. It's really sad because I'd love to have seen them built on that. Like I talked about it
Yeah.
with Alt J a bit last time as well. Like knowing that their guitarist left after the album, I was a bit disappointed because like that was the thing that was tying me most to it. Um,
Mhm.
where I was like, I wanted them to go forward and continue with something that maybe I'd attach myself to more. This is definitely an example of that, even though I do like it a bit more than an Awesome Wave, even though I think it's probably a bit worse quality on a more objective level. Um, it's just, yeah, I maybe because they're back together and they're touring together. They did a tour last year. Maybe they'll work on something again. Maybe we'll see how things have changed for them over the last couple decades. That would be fascinating. Be interested to see if they
That
do
would be.
anything. Like, I mean, it can't be much worse than what My Chemical Romance did after being apart for a decade. So, I mean, try it, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That would be really neat to see them like pursue something new. See how their sound has changed.
And see how if they've picked up any contemporaries or anything they've enjoyed over the last 10 years and how that's changed as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that comes to pass. But overall, yeah, I think I agree with Humpit. I'm not going to come back to this album a ton, but I did really like On the Sacred Side, and I liked Speaking in Tongues, but Deformative was definitely the best song off the album.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to come back to this again, but if they do produce something new, I will definitely listen to it immediately.
Hell yeah. Yeah, me
Sure.
too.
All right. Bit of a shorter one today, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a much shorter album, so it was like a tight 30 minutes, and we've made a roughly 30-minute podcast episode.
Yeah, like, that's some of what I was thinking, like, because my music taste definitely kind of caters to shorter episodes. Like, because there's been bands, like one that we've all brought up before, at least talking, I don't know if in podcasts, but a band I really like, Hong Kong Fuck You. Um, their whole discography is maybe 15 minutes. And so I'm like,
You could just do a whole
okay,
discography review, yeah.
yeah, that may in a couple weeks that may happen. Who knows?
Well, speaking of,
Yeah.
though, I guess I should tell you guys what we're listening to next time.
Yeah, what's your pick?
We're gonna be listening to Power, Corruption, and Lies by New Order.
Okay.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Never heard it. Never listened to it. So this is fresh territory.
Awesome.
That'll be great. Hell
Yeah, like I was torn between this and a Joy Division album. Obviously, I mentioned Peter Hook earlier. I'm probably going to talk a bunch about Joy Division next week in the episode anyway, so I figured it doesn't matter too much either way.
Yeah.
And especially
Definitely.
since you guys have heard Joy Division before, going into some New Order territory, you'll already have that background to pull upon. So it sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah.
As long as one of the songs has a rap section, I'll be fine.
Not that one. No.
No.
Hey, if we ever do Total, we're gonna have to talk about World in Motion,
Oh god.
starring John Barnes with who recently got I think he got massively fined for tax evasion.
Oh. Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. I think I might even just do Total next time it's me. That sounds like a lot of fun. But thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week with another new episode. This has been Preamp. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to become a Gold Star lesbian. Thank you. And
Black Eyes, White Dragon.
What?